Yeah, recordings from my wife and everybody. It's not to spy on you all. So anyway, I wanted to start this off reading. I like to just tell a story and be extemporaneous, but because of various reasons, there's a little bit of brain fog. I'm going to read some stuff first, and then launch into the show. So there are visuals coming, but a little bit of reading first. I wanted to start with, since this is a sort of Lutheran-based retreat, I would start with three Sufi poems that are appropriate for me uh, and this time. The first one is Rumi. The wound is the place where the light enters you. Second one is stay close to any sounds that make you glad to be alive. That's Hafiz. And I include that one because the loudest sound here at Grunewald is quiet. I mean, it's really loud, the quiet here, and pretty amazing. And then finally, another Hafiz poem. I wish I could show you where you are lonely or in darkness or in the darkness, the astonishing light of your own being. I want to thank Shan Wang and Arden Sawyer, both former residency artists and now Grunewald staff, who interviewed me for the residency and have been of great assistance while I've been here. I'm pretty sure I'm older than most of the artists they choose, and it might not be entirely because of talent and intention, but maybe either because I'm proficient potter and could add to the kitchen and dining supplies, or because I put my friend Mark Hansen Bach as a reference on the application. Mark is the co-director of Holden Village, which I'll talk about in just a second, and a friend and tennis team colleague from high school. Grunewald Guild, for those of you who don't know, which everyone here does know, but whoever listens to the recording doesn't probably, it's an artist residency, but also a retreat center, and it's connected to Holden Village, a Lutheran community and retreat center reachable only by boat in the Cascades of Washington State. I'd heard about Holden growing up in Northfield, Minnesota, home of many Norwegians and Lutherans, many of whom would pilgrimage to Holden, with some friends returning genuinely transformed. Art and faith is how the residency is billed, and I take that as an art and contemplation retreat. Actually, Arden ran a really awesome Quaker meeting last Sunday, so that's not Lutheran, and it was just so wonderful to just be in silence like that with myself and everyone else there. That will inspire me when I go home, so please know that. Anyway, so instead of some huge well-known clay residency with a lot of aspiring and established artists, this is open to any of the arts and only invites 3 artists per month sessions. In my session, the other 2 backed out, so I'm really on my own here. Because of that, and the contemplative bent and quiet of the place, this talk will go back and forth between inner and outer life. The context for coming here: this is my first semester retired from college art teaching. Not needing to do art for career or identity or money concerns, what's feeding me now? Once I was here, it all of a sudden seemed a bit early to do a residency, like jumping into full-time making again. But wait, I'm retired. I was hoping that with time and space and a studio, what's of value might bubble up. And that site specifically, which is the kind of work I've focused on mostly throughout my career, the place would play on me and suggest work. So anyway, let me go ahead and start this slideshow. Oh, you know what? I am gonna start the slideshow, but I'm also gonna share one other thing about retirement as transition, because it is huge. Okay, we're there, and I'm gonna go down here. Don't look ahead. There we go. Okay, so I was a bit manic at first when I got here, I was leaving everything familiar. Like I haven't gone this long away from my wife in a long time. That's my son who, although he's not living at home very much right now, he's the last 4 years he's either been off during the pandemic elsewhere or at grad school in Boston the last couple of years, and he's ready to launch. So while I'm here and transitioning into retirement, he's transitioning into moving to New York City to audition for musical theater and for classical voice. So it's a big transition for both of us. Anyway, when I first got here, I was a little bit manic because I was leaving everything familiar, like um, my job, which gave me really good colleagues and students, creative talking, and it gave me a container to, to organize my life around. And that's now kind of gone. And then I left my home and dog and wife and everything, and now I'm here. So I was a bit manic at first. So making pots kind of anchored me, kind of like something familiar to do that I'm good at, and so I kind of just sort of leaned on it and was sort of, really hitting that pretty hard, although it felt really weird. Um, but then I realized I was making and seeing the results, and I was hypnotized and mesmerized by it. I just sat there and looking at the shelves, and I found that like, wow, that's kind of interesting. And so like staring me right in the face was like, hey, you enjoy this. This is really engaging. And so that was interesting to know because I hadn't really given myself that chance since retiring to really fully go into it. And along with this full-on pottery making, and I'm gonna keep going now. It's enough for my family. I left that behind, right? This is on the way to on the bus, the mini bus ride from Seattle Airport to Penaston,
Pashastin.
Shashton. That's it. Really beautiful. And then here's where the guild is. I think it's like they keep it a well-kept secret with this sign here. You would never know there's a really cool art residency here. This is the Wenatchee River that runs behind the guild, and this is the upper area where the director lives, and it's really, really the grounds here are just gorgeous. Leaves are changing faster than you can believe. I think I even have one last leaf shot. That's a winner. Uh, and I can return to this shot later on of the sort of the setting winter sun, even though it's fall. Um, anyway, so besides the pottery being really really hypnotic to me and mesmerizing, an amazing level of inner dilemmas and childhood stuff sort of have continued to come up that the container of an interesting career sort of distracted me from. Um, I haven't been avoiding things from my childhood or any of that, but the container of work is really full on and how it kind of holds you. I find it interesting here that I'm making containers. Even the more artwork rather than the craft work is containers. It's kind of like for the last 3 years also, I was really into handles on mugs and I was like geeking out on it. And I always kind of joke that I'm just trying to get a grip or get a handle. So I love these metaphors of that with vessel. Um, I had three very deep conversations here about retirement on this retreat residency with a board member, a Lutheran pastor, and also a retreatant. The difficult transition to retirement is actually a thing, and as with all transitions and rites of passage in this society, it's not honored nor dealt with well at all. I think Holden Village is an amazing container for those in transition, both young and old. So it's actually kind of a perfect residency for transition. So anyway, oh yeah, also the residency comes along with Aurora Borealis. That's pretty cool. I would advertise that in your future offerings that you offer that here. Pretty spectacular. There's a beautiful garden here to get produce out for the food. This is where I lived. Pretty amazing house. Everything's hand built here. There's trees as supports. Um, there's handmade quilts from the guild on all the beds. Uh, and all the art on the walls is from the guild, so it's really like it's pretty cool. This is the path from the homestead house where I stayed to this pottery and where I met Little the cat on many occasion. Little the cat is a saving grace and also just a cat. And I really like him a lot. Anyway, so he would hang around pottery, come in and bite me and stuff like that. So it was really fun. He let me pick him up too. He's a great cat. Um, Pottery studio, small, but it has everything you need. So a nice table. You can pug your own clay, etc. And then the kiln room and glaze area. So yeah, it has everything that you really need. This is the sculpture barn, not really much in use while I was there, but I like it because it's somewhere between a barn and a church. It's really cool building. Pots and more pots. And let me tell you, I had three reasons for making pots. So I wasn't just throwing pots because they're familiar, which they are, but I was throwing them, one for the guild because I knew they needed some stuff. I asked them and I wanted to offer that. Give me, I make so much stuff sometimes that I don't know what to do with it. I hate throwing it away or putting it in boxes and waiting to have like a fire sale where everything goes real cheap. It just kind of feels cheap. And so it was lovely to have something to make for. So for the guild, the second one is during the pandemic, I had stopped making because it felt appropriate. Everything stopped. I stopped. And when I came out of it, I went to some art shows that felt entirely irrelevant. They were name artists, and it's like, no, this isn't cutting it anymore. And I'm not sure what does, but that's not doing it. And so what I did is I just kind of went back to my roots and I started throwing pots, but as a legacy. So what I'm doing is making a set of pots for my son from whenever he settles down. And I'll make some, and then I'll make better ones, and I'll move those back in and take the less interesting ones out. So it's sort of an evolving project, but I like it as something that goes beyond me and goes to my son. And so he's getting some pretty nice pots, I think. You can also see I made some dream boxes. More about those later. Here's some more pots. I started, with the pots. Oh yeah, he asked also while I was here. He asked me to make him an espresso set. These are very small, about about an inch and a half tall, with little whatever fossil snail things as handles. Um, um, a couple things about the pots is when I throw pottery, everything tends to be round and symmetrical, and it's fun to mess with things so that once the clay is fired, you can tell that it almost looks like it's still malleable and it has it's puffy and a little bit marked and stuff like that. So it just gives this feeling of plasticity still, which I like. Anyway, the third reason why I'm making pots, that's for the guild. Um, that's a close up of some of the markings and things, and also my handles, which I'm very proud of. They're very simple, but they work. Um, I did some glaze samples of all the glazes here, and then I brought in an ash glaze. More about that later. These are the pots for the guild, and then I did an order for this. I sell in one place right now. It's a boutique, really nice boutique store called Homage in Pasadena. And so I made these pots for their sort of the Christmas order, kind of a high-end boutique store. So anyway, I really enjoyed that. They're kind of a pain to, like the stripe ones are, they're time consuming. But once I start on it, it's funny. All the things that I did were kind of time consuming, but once I started on them, it was really just sucked me my interest. Like it was really quite engaging. So, and I took some groupings here of just some of the pots so you can see them isolated. This is a glaze these two glazes. That's an ash glaze, but this is from pine ash from the sauna and from the wood burning stoves around the campus. Down in LA, you have mostly oak ash, so it's a very different look. And then this is a white crawl glaze that when I teach glaze calculation, I always have, or chemistry, I have students make one with a lot of magnesium, and invariably this happens. So it's like just two ingredients, and it's really fun. Anyway, and then here these look a little bit like tops. That's why I kind of like them, like festive tops. They're lidded jars and vases. And then I started playing with faceting. There's that ash glaze again. It's just gorgeous. With faceting and then stretching it out. I had a tech at school and also a student that were playing a lot with that. I didn't because they were doing it, but I wanted to try it and I really enjoyed it. I love the fluidity of them. There's that ash glaze again. I love the undulating rims too. It's kind of cool. Oh, I mentioned something about the winter sun. So, and I also mentioned that I used to do a lot of site-specific work. I think I still do. I think even the pots are a little bit in some regards. Site-specific means it belongs somewhere. It not just relates to the environment or it would look good in this environment. It actually says something about the environment or makes you aware of the environment or of a larger sphere in which it's shown, or it it changes the environment or the environment will change it. And so it's the whole idea is that it's not just this precious object on a pedestal, but you're actually, you know, it's actually connecting you to a larger awareness of what's going on right around you, ideally. And for me, that kind of opens up a sense of wonder. But anyway, so while I'm here, this happened on another residency I went on where I was at a sewer pipe factory. I won't go into that. Well, they make 1,000 sewer pipes a day. And so the idea that came to me was to make a do-it-yourself sewer pipe. So I spent a couple of days making a human-sized sewer pipe with coils. It was sort of an exercise in futility and kind of stupid, which I love as an art strategy. It's one of my favorite, you know, make something stupid and take it seriously. And so I made, for that one, I made a sewer pipe. I also did a photo project of the pipes and how they were in circles and remind me of the incredible movie that you need to see if you haven't, called Arrival, where the heptapods are speaking in circles. And it was just like, anyway, it was very interesting to me. For here, because I'm retired, the childhood stuff coming up, it's cold weather. It's not cold down in LA. I've lived in LA for 40 years now, but I grew up in Minnesota where it's really cold. And one of the biggest respite of the seasons changing is when it snowed. It was like everything got covered in white, and it's like it just wiped the slate clean, and the quiet was just incredible. And it was really like grace, really, whenever it snowed. And the cold weather sort of jogged this. I'm a month early for the snow, unfortunately, but it is cold here, and that sort of just brought along this nostalgia of childhood from the snow. And since I'm going to miss the snow, I thought I should make some snow catchers, so it will catch the snow. So even though I'm not here, it can catch the snow while I'm not here, which again is another exercise in futility. I mean, what are you going to do? Capture the snow and then send it to me? It's going to be melted by then, and it will be out of context. It's just like, but it's a sort of like it's experiencing the snow by proxy, which is another exercise in futility and kind of stupid. But I love that, and I love the poetry of it, of capturing the snow for me. I feel like I'm getting verklempt just thinking about it. So anyway, I made these snow catchers. They're very crude. Here's a couple of them, very fluid and very organic, and they belong outside. I got these three. There's a fourth one. It's like a cocoon. He may be in the final one. I'm not sure, but I made a fourth, another one I'll talk about in a second. And then I made these nests. I looked at them from a distance, and I said, oh boy, I hope these don't look like bad IKEA furniture. But anyway, the whole idea was to open them up and have a lot of space. So just like snow when it's falling, just lots of space and fluidity and openness and a little bit of chaos in there too. And they're nests for the snow catchers. Here's one outside. I glazed them with kiln wash, which is not a glaze, but it's very white. And when you wipe it off, it works it into the kiln, or it works it into the clay body, so it won't powder off too much. And it really emphasizes, when you wipe it off, it emphasizes the texture. Here's another one. Here's a third one. And then here they are out in the field. I don't know if they'll end up here, but and then I made a fourth one, and I was looking for a mold to make it in, like a big saucer or something that was like very wide for a bowl. And then Shan came up with a great idea of using one of the rocks that are near the campus, because they have, some are like this, like for a hump mold, some are slumping for a slump mold. This one was beautiful. I used it and I love the fact, clay is from decomposed rock, and it's from near Grunewald, and so the whole thing is like just perfect as a mold. So I was making a record of this particular rock, and this rock itself will be a snow catcher. I'm just pointing at the rock thing. So anyway, I made a snow catcher inside the rock, and that will be fired soon this week. And then last but not least is the dream boxes. I sort of proposed this as part of the residency. And so I'm in a dream group. We write down our dreams at night. We draw them if we want to bring it to the group on once a week on Zoom. And the drawings give us something to kind of park our minds on, because dreams are so crazy. It's impossible to, they're really hard to follow. But to have a drawing really helps. And I posted a couple of my drawings on Facebook, and a couple of artist friends who I really respect, who are really master ceramists as well as master drawers and really know line and everything. They're really master painters as well. They said, "Oh, these are great. You should do something with these." And I said, "I'm not trained." Anyway, they went, "That's why they're good." So I said, "Okay, well, maybe I'll make some dream boxes." So I have these dreams, and I choose really good dreams. That this is so beautiful. I'm hearing music, and it's what allows you to travel from across the lake, across the ocean to the next shore. Oh, I have some really lovely. I tend to use the lovely dreams. So I made these dream boxes that I'm going to draw on. And I did some other dream boxes at home just to try out different kinds of line and underglazes or colored pencils and pens. And so these are three other dreams. So I'm starting to collect a whole. I'll have a whole exhibit of dream boxes soon. But again, the site-specific thing happened. I had a dream here at Grunewald. I won't go totally into it, but it's perfect for Grunewald because this is people in transition. Like people are moving, and this is Steph, who's Mark's son, and he's going off to they're going to a language school in Guatemala and in transition, and also all this in transition, and then the dream switches to a faculty meaning a school, and it's evaluating a professor who's deceased. And actually, in real life, as a friend of mine, really great guy, really warm, really smart, one of the best lecturers on campus. I even said that in the dream. And it's like an evaluation. I said, he's dead. This is so disrespectful. But it turns out they were really honoring him. And one of the other art professors came in with this big 5 foot by 5 foot foam core graphic of these lines going into an infinite perspective, and it says "carry on" in all these different languages. And in the dream, I start crying because it was honoring him, and it's in dreams they all come from you. Every character in them and everything that happens, it's all you. So I think this whole dream is like me in transition and just carry on. I think it was a really sort of a beautiful and deep message. Just carry on. So really this week I'll be drawing on the dream boxes. I'll add color to this particular dream, and also I'm kind of working on a follow-up book to a first one I wrote about. I had I had a spiritual mentor for about 12 years who's now dead. He died a couple of years ago, and I wrote a book of the things he talked to me about, and I want to do a follow-up. So I've been doing some editing of that, so I might work on that also here. So anyway, really full on residency and going in pretty deep directions. I think from the outside it looks like I was just making pots, but there is a big journey going on. This is a journey place. And I think Holden, hopefully someday I'll make it up to Holden too. I think it's definitely a journey place and a really wonderful place again, for uh, young people and old people, kind of like, oh, and that's just community, having community. That's one of the biggest things I miss since I've retired, is community. And I've really got to work on that. And it's ready made up here, and ready made up in Holden. And I could feel that. I really felt part of something which is really nurturing, uh, sustenance. So I think I'm done talking. And have I talked long enough? Probably. Yeah, I've talked perfect. That's 2:30, for goodness sakes. If you have any
Yeah.
questions or comments or anything, I, I'm here.
Thank you so much, Stan.
Sure.
And yeah, if people have questions or comments, now is the time.
I'm
I
on.
really enjoyed, oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I'm around all of you guys every day anyway,
I
so
know,
it's
but we
yeah,
want to draw some questions out of you
sure.
for the folks who will watch this later.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I was just gonna say that I really enjoy that um all of the different clay pieces that you did don't necessarily like have an easily identifiable like through line of like, oh yeah, that stands.
Mm.
Like, other artists that come through, you can kind of tell like, with Becca's pottery, she's got a style, and you can kind of tell. So I just, yeah, I thought that was amazing that the forms and the aesthetics of the pieces were just like so variable. Yeah, and I wondered if you would speak about that a little.
I appreciate that. You put such a positive spin on that. I've always been told I'm a little bit all over the place, and I've stopped fighting that. Especially with site-specific work, you can make whatever you want. It's what bubbles up by being there. When you get to a place and you start dreaming about it and dealing with the people there, it just suggests something totally different. So it's almost like a form um, of channeling or of empathy of place. And I mean, I've got a style in my pottery that I love finger rings and stuff like that. I mean, I've got things that I gravitate towards, but it's always changing and it's always improving. And I don't like yesterday's pots. It's kind of like that. But yeah, I'm a bit of a chameleon that way. So good eye. And yes, and that's true. And I enjoyed. I think that was a good reason for going into teaching. Is that I know a lot of artists who go into doing art and they start selling, and then they're kind of locked into having to make that thing over and over again because they want that same kind of look. Um, and so it really kind of locks you in. And teaching allowed me. I didn't have to worry about selling, and it allowed me to kind of do whatever I want and not have to worry about selling or having a look or a brand or any of that kind of stuff. Yeah.
I think something that I've noticed about your work since you got here and before when looking at it during the application process, um, that there's like a playfulness to it. And I do think that's like a connecting thread through all of the different things that you make, that they're not overworked and they're very playful. And you said something about doing something stupid and taking it seriously,
Yeah.
which not necessarily the same thing as playfulness, but I don't know. I feel like there's something about that. I was wondering if you could talk about that more.
Oh, thank you. I really enjoy that. Yeah, we have a new sculpture teacher at Chafee, and he became a very fast friend, really smart guy. Um, and we both were trying to put our finger on this kind of strategy, and he explains things much better. He's one that came up with taking it seriously, but he just put it very pithy. Mine was like, I forget, think of something immature or dumb or stupid or from childhood, but spend a lot of time on it. Um, I think all of this is play in a lot of ways. I'm happy that you picked it up in the work. It's serious play, and it's hmm, hmm. Yeah, even this more like serious stuff. I did a bunch of migration grids that scientists found that monarch butterflies migrate by seeing invisible grids of UV light across the sky, and that's what guides them on their migration from the Midwest to Mexico. And and so I made these grids as if we could see them. Um, and clay is the wrong material for it. It's like I had to build them in the kiln because they were so fragile, these open forms, and they cast shadows that were really beautiful and all that stuff. But it's kind of the wrong material for the job. But it was right because it was earth and sky, and I like the contrast. Sky forms and the wrong material, really fragile to make these really gossamer forms that we can't even see. So there's something kind of funny in that too, just like kind of dumb but sophisticated. And I like that playing with that, where um, where you can't take it too seriously. And I think that's really important for me, and also just not to take stuff too seriously. That's actually been a sort of with all the stuff that hit the fan, especially the first week here, um, to, to to make things a little less significant. I mean, they don't need to be so significant. I think it's a big lesson, and actually, I have choice in that. But anyway, back to that playfulness. I think it's really. Uh, I don't own that yet. I'm glad you saw that, and I would like to own that more. That's really a nice thing to say and to see. I'll think about that and chew on it. Yeah.
Okay, I have a question. Are you drawing any inspiration from the Northern Lights viewing from a few days ago? And like I'm seeing the photo up on the screen right now and I'm just like, wow, I wonder what work Stan would do that's inspired by
Oh, I
such a
mean,
crazy natural phenomenon that we kind of all got to view.
yeah. Well, first of all, that's a lot of the iPhone bringing up the highlights. It wasn't. It was much more subtle than that. But my God, I mean, it's already like a master painting. What could you do with that? But if I were to sit down and just if I were like to journal about it, what do I like? Because this is what I have my students do. I like have, but I look at really the more mundane, the better. But we could look at this and say, well, what do I like about this? Well, the shimmering quality, that the sky usually is kind of a static, it's like blue sky, just it's like a ceiling. Um, and this thing all of a sudden it's like, this shifting, moving, surreal, dreamlike curtains, fingers, um, the way the colors fade into each other. Uh, I mean, it's like I could go like that. I mean, it's just total magic. It's like what? I mean, you could explain it, but that doesn't do it any justice. Um, I don't know what I do with it. That's interesting. It's sort of like so much bigger than me.
Mhm.
I think that's what you're left with. Any good work of art makes you kind of lose yourself in maybe something larger, I think, or something even, or a beautiful detail that you'd never seen before, and that sucks you in. That's anything that kind of takes you on a little bit of a ride. I think is really cool art, and this is the Northern Lights are really cool art. Um, yeah, but I haven't thought about that. I don't know what I would do with that. Yeah,
Well, that's my nudge to you.
well, very good, and that's a good nudge. That's a very good nudge.
Yeah, other than the Northern Lights, I'm curious what is next for you, Stan, after this.
Well, this retirement thing is what surprised me about it, and this some of my talks. That's the challenging thing is you can get really floating and drifty. I'm not a person to go out and play golf and go to Hawaii. It just doesn't appeal to me. Golf courses are beautiful places, man-made earthworks. They're really fantastic. But the normal let's go drink beer and play golf is just not meaningful to me. I don't know. Well, one thing I think that I might want to look into I've been part of Buddhist communities before, but there's sort of a hierarchy and there's teachers and all that stuff. I'm really kind of tired of that. And also growing up in sort of an authoritarian religious background, I'm really kind of tired of that. I don't need that. And but I really like the Quaker thing, and I really like the quiet and the Quaker thing. So that might be like a thing I'll look into when I get back, and that might be a community right there. Who knows? Um, um, I have it in mind to run some perception workshops. I did it when I was teaching, and I would in at Whitman College in Walla Walla. I did a workshop there for like 3 days on seeing, and I did one I gave a talk at the National Clay Conference on seeing, and that's pretty. When perception opens up, that's pretty magical. So I might want to do that workshop again, but this time outside of the whole thing of like I need to I can put this on my resume, but just like, you know, there's a couple places that have asked for me to come and maybe do a workshop, and I might want to do that. I don't know if it's like work. I don't know what work is anymore, or what I should, if I should work, or you know, um, and I hate this whole thing of becoming a has-been. That just like drives me crazy. So it's sort of like it's almost like you have to reinvent things for yourself. I might get a studio. I mean, I'm so mesmerized by the pottery. Maybe I'll do a studio, or maybe I'll join a studio, or maybe I'll start teaching at a local, like I started out teaching at a local community place. Maybe I'll do that again, so I have a studio. Um, I can't have a studio at home because I'm in a fire hazard area,
Hmm.
and the thought of an earthquake happening when I have, 2,200-degree pots, rolling around on the outside does not appeal to me, you know. So I can't have a studio at home. So I don't know. That's like you just asked a Zen koan. So if you have suggestions, I'm open.
Yeah, have you looked at more residencies? Do you think this might be something you're gonna do?
I thought so, but then when I came here, like I said, the first week, I almost left. I go, what am I doing here? I'm here. I'm retired. I'm making this. There's nothing else to do but make. And um, so it feels a little early. So this felt a little early, but I think it's probably divine timing. Um, I did look at a couple. There's one in Wyoming, I think, that's I forget what it's called. I applied to that, never heard back from them, but it's also very, very small and very quiet. So I might look into that. Maybe we'll see how this plays on me when I get back. I may just have a longing to, like a hankering to get back into a quiet making mode. Um, it's lovely to have something meaningful to work on. It's really I think that's what floats my boat more than anything. So yeah, another good question. Yes, I'll look at them. I have this sort of, you know, I wish my wife wanted to come along to these things. There's just nothing much for her to do.
Well, I was actually just thinking, you mentioned wanting to go up to Holden at some point, and there's always lots of volunteer work to be done there, and they have a really great pottery studio there as well. And I mean, depending on the amount of time you'd be willing to commit, they do have like a year-long volunteer position for a village potter,
Wow.
which, huh?
Wow.
Yeah. So I don't know when it's open next, but just, gonna put that there. And, if you want to go volunteer for a couple of weeks and like just do like be a kitchen assistant or
Yeah.
do housekeeping or whatever, like you do that and then you have access to the pottery studio the whole time you're there too. So
Yeah. Well, I also know they have sort of visiting scholar thing.
yeah, teaching faculty as well. You could apply to
Do a
teach in the
couple week,
summertime.
yeah, do a couple week thing or something. That'd be a lovely way to do it too.
Yeah.
Um, so I do want to honor. I mean, there's a lot of things that I think that I taught that was very you don't really get in clay programs very often. Um, so I mean, I have things to offer in that regard, which is a sort of a big interface between art and spirituality, at least for me. So, um, yep, that's all food for thought. I talked to someone who's into marketing when I was at the National Clay Conference. She had a free consultation. You could hopefully hit her up for more afterwards, which I might. But I was talking to her about the workshops, the idea of workshops and visiting scholar programs and that kind of thing, and that could be very fruitful. It would be meaningful to me. It's meaningful to me to share things that, you know, when I assign my journal things like tell me how come you like something that's interesting to you. It can be bubble gum on the street. It doesn't have to be artwork. As a matter of fact, don't do artwork. Do something mundane. And all of a sudden, the world starts opening up for people, and they write these crazy things. Or I'll have them look at a blank wall for 10 minutes and tell me what you see. And it's a great exercise. You just like all of a sudden, things start shifting and lights start fading and coming. It's just a trip if you relax and don't force it. Um, and I like that kind of idea of people's perceptions opening up to things that we take for granted. Um, that's been important to me for a long time. So anyway, I might do something like that. Anyway, but thank you for the bringing it up. I will think and ponder.
Okay, that is it. Gonna go ahead and stop the recording.